Welcome back to New York's Business Podcast. My name is Jacob Restituto. I'm the host and owner of Restituto Media, a full-service photo and video company based out of Long Island. Today, I'm here with Dr. Meredith Vandegrift. Very much looking forward to taking the time to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So for people that aren't super familiar with you and your story, can you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon. I've been in practice for myself for just about 4 years now. I was originally employed right out of training, and for me, it was really important to control the whole aspect of the experience, particularly in cosmetic surgery, because it's more of a boutique, hand-holding, private experience. And I learned early on that if I wasn't completely in control, I couldn't really have a big say in my patient's experience and outcome. So that's where Vandegrift plastic surgery came from, was my desire to really be able to hone in and really focus on the patient and make it really a patient-centric experience.
So talk to me a little about that. So I have a couple questions about the transition from working with somebody or working for somebody and now own your own practice. But you mentioned the hand-holding process for the patient. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, what that looks like? Elaborate on that phrase for you?
Sure. I mean, even just from the time when someone first walks into your office, how they're greeted, how they're made to feel comfortable. You want someone to, this could be a very intimidating process for somebody. It's a very personal process for, men and women looking to alter a part of their body or just to be refreshed. And you want someone to feel, comfortable. You want them to trust you. And so that trust starts right when they walk in the door. And so hiring the right people to face them, it starts there.
Would you even say that potentially that the trust starts even before they walk in the door with, the marketing and who you put yourself out as?
Yeah.
How are you getting people in the door and what does that look like and how are you introducing yourself, the warm welcome?
Right. It's changed even just in the last 8 years since I've been in practice. In total, social media has certainly taken over. So most of my patients, I think, already know me. They see me post online. Maybe a lot of them are referrals. So a lot of patients know me because I'm a friend of a friend. So I would say it's pretty rare that someone comes to see me without having had some interaction with me, whether it's because our kids play together on a sport or because I've seen them at a mom's, group local meeting, or they've watched a bunch of my videos. So
social media has been doing well for you then?
Yes, social
Really?
media has been great.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I feel like businesses fall into three categories. Social media is dumb and I'm not going to do it is one category. The second category is I've been doing it, but maybe potentially not doing it well, but they don't really know that and it doesn't work. And then the third category, which you're successfully in, is that it actually works for them. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, what you're doing, but why you also feel it's working and the results you've been seeing from that.
Yeah, I mean, I really started to get into it during the pandemic because I was one of the ones who did not need to work all of the time. I was really just available on an emergency basis for the ER. So I was home a lot, and I thought that was a great time to really introduce myself as, a plastic surgeon, a mom, someone who's local. And so it started with a lot more personal posts because I was at home and with my kids. But a lot of people would tell me, friends of friends would say, I really enjoy your post because it makes you relatable. And I think that's really important in the process of someone coming to see me. And if they choose me to do their procedure or their surgery, is that they can relate to me, because that's where that trust comes in.
Sure, absolutely. I've always heard it said, and this is particularly related to social media or anything really, but that a lot of business, more so based on the character of the person than the quality of the service. Of course, you want quality service, and typically that should honestly just be, par for the course. Like
Right.
You should be good at your job, right?
Right, exactly.
But a lot of people will decide who they go with based on the quality of the person and who they are, rather than just like, oh, he's the best in the business. Well, cool,
Right.
but he's kind of a jerk, and I don't.
Right.
So does he really care about me, right?
Right.
You mentioned during the pandemic you were at the ER. I think personally, to be honest with you, when I hear plastic surgery, I automatically think of like the Botox or like the nose reductions and stuff.
Right.
Obviously, it's significantly larger than that. Can you speak on that and what you actually do here and the services you offer?
Sure. I mean, before anyone knew who I was, a lot of my work was largely going into the ER and repairing facial lacerations and doing a lot of wound care. So patients who either had a burn or a fall and had soft tissue injury or loss, that was really what the bulk of my practice was to start. And then it slowly grows because it was the mom of the kid who came in to get their face sewn up, maybe wants Botox or maybe wants a tummy tuck. And so it kind of snowballed from there.
What would you say the majority of your work is now?
90% breast and body. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Starting to get into more face lifts and things like that too, but the tummy tucks and the breast are my bread and butter.
Interesting. So less ER work than now.
Less ER work, yeah. That landscape has changed. Insurance coverage for things like that has changed. So
In what sense?
they don't really
Pay well.
reimburse us. Truthfully, they don't reimburse us. But if it's a, if it's a friend's kid, I'm going in. It doesn't matter. But as part of my business model, I had to recalibrate and kind of pivot from that because it went from being a big source of my income to almost no income. So I'd
love to hear a little bit about that. So one of the biggest struggles in any business is the idea of pivoting, because something's working for so well for so long and all of a sudden it doesn't work. And businesses can either pivot and continue to grow. Sometimes the pivot doesn't work, but also sometimes they decide not to pivot. I'd love to hear your decision on how you ended up deciding it was time to pivot and how you actually executed that pivot.
Part of the first pivot was really going from being employed to my own practice. And it became a situation where I really just didn't have any control, like I said, about the patient experience. And so it was just about me getting space and just hanging the shingle and welcoming patients and just starting from the ground up. Some other pivots that have happened, when I first went into practice 8 years ago, only core physicians really did Botox. And now there's a med spa in every corner. All physicians offer Botox.
What's a core physician?
People in the cosmetic world, so ENTs, dermatologists, plastic surgeons were generally the core providers for that. And now it's PAs and RNs and everybody seems to dabble in it a little bit. So that became another place where I had to pivot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, looking at weight loss medications and having a bigger part in perimenopause discussions with my patients and helping them navigate that process has become a bigger part of my practice too.
So as you pivot, how do you pivot your clientele? Because obviously you go into the industry as one thing, then potentially even another, because you're constantly, as a business should, reinventing themselves, pivoting as the market changes.
A lot of it's just those relationships I build. So if it's the parents whose child I sewed up, and maybe the mom was coming to me for Botox, and now her friend does Botox, but she still comes to me for maybe my skincare or the spa therapies that I have or the skin tightening device that I've acquired. It's keeping that relationship and using social media as a tool to put that out there so people know that I also offer these things.
So for best practices for other businesses, what have you been finding that works on social media for you? What have you been doing, and what is what's working?
Certainly the videos. I mean, that was a big shift too. Hiring somebody to actually record me speaking about the things that I do, showing them me actually operating in the operating room, doing a laser procedure, having a laser procedure done on myself. That has been a big change because I think people want to have that. They want to see that type of content. They don't want to just see a static image with information below.
Is it primarily organic that's doing well for you, or is it paid posts as well?
It's almost all organic. Yeah.
Pretty
Every once in a while, we'll boost a post that vote for me for Long Island, best tummy tuck Long Island, but which I just was nominated for. But in general, it's all organic.
Very interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself going in the future? What opportunities do you see in this industry?
It's hard to say. I mean, the things that I do now, some of the things that I do routinely in practice, I didn't even learn about in training. I mean, this field is, it's really unique in the fact that we're given a set of tools. We learn how to operate on all parts of the body in all sorts of circumstances. And as new technologies evolve, we learn how to bring those on and acclimate to that and be able to, use that to our benefit and the benefit for our patients. So,
are there required? I know, for example, the accounting industry is required, and even the architecture, continuing education classes. Is that required for your industry?
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
I have CME.
Okay. Yeah. So this may be a very I don't know what the word would be. I don't understand. I'm not super familiar with your industry, right? So what are the qualifications to become your position? Are you go to medical school or?
Yeah, so 4 years of medical school. I did 5 years of general surgery. So I did a general surgery residency, and then I did a plastic surgery fellowship, which was 3 years. And then I got my board certification in plastic and reconstructive surgery, which is sort of the that's the big one.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
lots of other boards that people get, smaller ones, cosmetic boards and things like that, injectable boards. But mine is the sort of all-encompassing sort of gold standard for
Sure.
what I do.
It's got to be a bit of a blow that like you go into the industry, and I commend you for pivoting, but it's got to be frustrating that you go into the industry and like, again, you could do Botox originally, and then now everybody and their mom could do Botox, and it's like, well, I went to school for all this stuff, and it's kind of funny now how the world changes and stuff. But
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's definitely encroachment, and not just in plastic surgery, in all fields. I was just watching a video about, someone taking on cosmetic dentistry that wasn't actually a trained dentist. So, at the heart of my field is really doing the surgical procedures, is doing the tummy tucks, and I don't see that being taken over by others. I like doing the Botox. I like having that interaction with my patients. I like to build that relationship. But at the end of the day, I'm a surgeon, and I love to operate. So
absolutely. I'd be curious to hear about like the future of technology, right? You mentioned technology and how, like, for example, the continuing education classes, or just in general, always have to adapt to a lot of things you didn't even learn about in school. And there's a lot of talk about like AI and stuff like that. And obviously the internet wasn't around 20, 30 years ago, but it's completely it changed everything. And then from the internet went social media, and now that's completely changed everything. And now we have AI coming. I'm just curious in your perspective on the opportunity, or like how you see that as a benefit, or even potentially even like a con to your industry.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it helps me craft better emails, let's say. I mean, going from very basic, there's some element of, I'm a doctor. I didn't learn how to, do basic things around my house, or just running a practice, so it's great for me to be able to look those things up and write that professional email when I'm trying to accomplish something, so that's I do appreciate that. The internet can be, my biggest enemy though sometimes, because you can go down a rabbit hole. So for instance, my patients come in who want a breast augmentation, and you could click on the wrong link and get a whole slew of, bad information, unscientific opinions about, the safety of breast implants, let's say. And I just make sure it's all about educating, and having my patients trust me that I'm giving them the correct information, because they can see all my diplomas on the wall. But until they sit in my chair, they may not, that trust takes a little bit of time. And I try and instill in patients, I'm giving you all of the correct information. When you go home, if you feel the need to look this up, make sure the website you're on ends with a .org or a .edu, so that you're not just reading someone's opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting. People have become very they've been given the outlet for their opinions, and depending on how confident their opinion is, it's really easy to believe that opinion. It can completely be, hogwash.
Right.
This is really interesting. For the record, my emails have gotten so much better as well.
It's awesome.
I write it out and I either say, hey, write me this email, or hey, this is the email that I wrote, make it way better.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's a game changer. That process is new for me. That's been in the last couple of weeks.
I don't know. I'm super fascinated with that industry. I just like, business and technology and stuff in general. There's some really interesting opportunities out there, and it's a little scary at the same time, but I'm sure people are scared about the internet and, and social media and all of our information being out there and stuff. So it's just adapting. And
right.
I mean, the philosophy that I have with that whole thing is like, people are like, oh, it's going to take away jobs and make people less efficient, or like you're going to be able to do things quicker, and like, what's the point of, right? So my thought process is like the Industrial Revolution, or the Agricultural Revolution is actually so like it used to take 50 farmhands to clear a field in a day.
Right.
Now you do it in
with one machine.
With one machine. But like, should we have kept the 50 farmhands? It's just it's just kind of the way the world works.
That's
and
the way
if
it
you
is.
try to fight it,
you have to evolve. We're always evolving. A friend of mine said something really interesting to me. Some of our children are going to have careers in fields that don't exist yet.
Oh, absolutely.
And that struck me, because some of the technologies I use now didn't exist 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it's just, there's
complete industries,
exactly, that constant evolution. So
I mean, growing up, I wanted to be an NFL football player, right? It's been around for 100 years. I ended up doing YouTube for a couple of years. Like that didn't even exist. It wasn't even a thing when I was in school. It's the way the world works, and just new industries pop up.
Yeah.
We talked briefly about like customer acquisition. and how you find new customers. I'd love to hear about customer retention. Is there some sort of retention rate with customers? Because, for example, like some sort of, hopefully, somebody's not getting re-injured, right?
Right.
So what would is there some sort of customer retention, or is it all just new customers?
No, there's definitely retention. I mean, even for my surgical patients who come in for one specific surgery and they undergo that and they say, oh, actually, that wasn't so bad. Maybe I will now consider, the next step. I do a lot of massive weight loss, skin removal surgeries. So those patients in particular, they have a laundry list of things that they want done. We kind of, we prioritize. And so they're coming back to see me. Some of them come back in 3 to 6 months for, their next procedure. Some come once a year. So there are long-term relationships that I build. That to me is that's my favorite part of this procedure, is to come back, or they send their family member and then I get to see them, on that end. Mm-hmm. I absolutely have, repeat offenders, but, patients that come back, they like, how they were treated, they like the experience, and they want to, they trust me for the next thing that they want to undertake.
What would you say to the person that has considered a procedure, but has concerns essentially? What would you say to them?
I mean, it depends on what their concern is. Nobody likes the idea of being under general anesthesia. And so it's just explaining how that process works and how they should feel. And, I think just giving them information. And I think a lot of it is just when they say it out loud, it makes it less scary, right? If once you can name your fear, sometimes that is enough to just get it out there, and then you can take a minute and breathe, and I can kind of encourage that, and say, okay, I get that. Here's how it's going to go. And if you give everyone, if you give them sort of a blueprint for what they can expect, it takes a lot of that fear away.
So you mentioned in our conversation before we started filming that you have 2 young kids. Mm-hmm. How do you find the balance between you owning your own practice and all the work that you do here and your home life? The work-life balance, I think, can be one of the hardest parts to balance in any industry, but particularly, when you own your own practice or you own your own business. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
It is the hardest part of my day, is balancing both of them. And truthfully, you can't be the best at any one place, simultaneously. You kind of have to pick one. So I've embraced that. Putting myself in a position where I'm close to my family and my home has definitely helped. So I just moved to this location. I was about 15 minutes south of here. And so that was a little bit of a challenge. So now being closer to home, closer to their schools, helps me wear both of those hats more efficiently. But yeah, it's tough, but at the end of the day, being a surgeon makes me a better mom. Having children, I think, makes me a better surgeon. So
absolutely. That's a great perspective. Yeah, for sure. I've also heard it said that it's about essentially seasons. Like sometimes the season is that work is really, really busy. Yes. And sometimes home life is really, really busy or really, really hard. And I think the problem that a lot of people have is sometimes they get stuck, myself included, we get stuck in that one season, or we feel really bad that we're in that season and forget that. I mean, we have to be intentional about it, but that if we're intentional, it will swing back the other way.
Right.
I don't know if there really is that perfect balance. And if we find it, it's there for a month.
It's
and then
fleeting. It's fleeting.
Just like anything though.
Yeah.
The stress is fleeting, the joy is fleeting, and the perfect balance is fleeting.
Absolutely.
It's always an ebb and flow.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of need those lows sometimes to really appreciate the highs, right?
Yeah, sure. You appreciate the time with your kids more when you're really busy at work. And sometimes you're like, I got to get back to work.
Me out of here. I love walking into this office every day. But then at the end of the day, I love walking, I love meeting them at the bus stop,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes I can make all the school events in a month. Sometimes they give us, not a lot of notice, and I already have a full schedule, and I can't change, I can't cancel my patients to go see a 20-minute thing at school as much as I would love to. And sometimes they get upset, and I have to explain to them, mommy works, mommy and daddy work. We're going to make as many events as we can, but we can't make all of them. And, that's kind of the way it is. And generally they're okay with that,
So you mentioned that you also do skincare. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear your perspective on the TikTokification of the world with skincare. Now everybody's a skincare professional. Yep. And I don't want to poo-poo people because there's great information out there, but I'm curious just on your perspective on that and how it's affected industry and just your perspective in general.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows I'm an open book. I have friends texting me all day. I just saw this product online. What do you think about it? And I'll usually not have heard of it because the cosmeceutical industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry with all of the, different brands of skincare and things. So I can't possibly keep track of every new brand that comes up. And, skincare basically comes down to a couple fundamentals that don't change, whether somebody wants to rebrand it as something else, sunscreen, a retin-A for when you're a little bit older, good moisturizer, cleansing, there's things that hold true 50 years ago, they'll hold true 50 years from now. It's just a matter of, picking a couple quality products and using them consistently. And when I decided to create my own skincare line, it was because I felt like I wanted to be able to recommend products that A, I knew work, B, were at a good price point that wouldn't scare people away, and C, that I could speak to by using myself. And so when my patients come in and they meet me and they say, oh my God, your skin's amazing. Okay, well, I use these skincare products. I do injectables a couple times a year. I get laser, and it's a process. And I say, I'm happy to make a plan for you that works for your budget and your schedule and things like that. And if you tell me you can only pick one of these things, well, I'll gear you towards the right one for you. So
Very interesting.
It's just more part of that comprehensive care that I offer.
Absolutely, it's the full package.
Yeah.
So where do you see the business going in the next couple of years, your particular business, or the industry as well?
I mean, I see growth.
Amen to that, absolutely.
I think naturally, as plastic surgeons, every plastic surgeon will tell you what they started doing in the beginning of their career changes by the end of the career, depending on, and that's largely based on their peer group. So right now I'm a mid-40-something mom. So all of my patients, or many of my patients, are in that age bracket where the kids are getting a little bit older. Now I have time to start thinking about me. And now I do have time, and maybe the finances. I know.
I have a 2-year-old daughter.
I know.
It's not about me right now.
My kids are still very young, but a lot of my friends have kids that are older, and and so it's giving women and men permission to say, okay, it's my turn now. One of my patients, I've operated on her twice in the last 6 months, and then her husband came in. And because she looks so great, he decided, well, I want to look good too, so I want to get this done, and I love that. And she said, well, I've got this time frame because my first grandbaby is going to be born in a couple months, so I know I want to be around for them to help them. So I need to get all these things done for myself now, so that I can then do that later.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then I'm assuming based on that, like your comments, then as you continue to go farther in your career and the demographic that you're around changes, that will also change as well.
Then we move into the facelift, territory where more of my patients will likely be seeking out facial, cosmetic rejuvenation. Mm-hmm. So, but it's, it's hard to say really where it's going to go.
Sure.
It's in a great place right now, and just growth in general.
So efficiency is key to any business, and obviously I think that efficiency has become an addiction for some people. Like, oh, how can I be the most efficient? But like, general practices, you want to be an efficient business owner. Are there any practices that you have or any programs that you use that you found like this is super helpful? For example, like I'm just saying, everybody knows QuickBooks, right? Oh, QuickBooks is super helpful because this one part of it does, right? That's kind of what I'm asking essentially. Like, is there anything in your business that might spark an interest in another business owner? Be like, oh, I should check out that program to help me. Is there anything that you guys are using or any tools that you found that have made your business runs more smoothly?
Yeah, I mean, when I first went to practice for myself, my old practice was on charts, on paper, and then I got an electronic medical record, sort of more tailored toward cosmetic surgery. So just having note templates and things like that, having automated reminders sent out to patients, a lot of that helps the staff, helps me in real time. I'd say that's probably been the most helpful thing for me.
I'm sure automated messages to the patient is huge.
Yeah, and also there's a portal for them that they can message us. So it kind of cuts out the phone calls and the messages back and forth. They can just directly message us or me, especially my pre and post-op patients. I like them to have that access.
Absolutely.
And so it just simplifies that, and it takes a lot of the stress out of the whole process. If they know that they can just send a text and it shows up on my phone and I can respond.
So based on the conversation that we're having, from what I'm seeing, it seems like you're really personable. And one thing I admire, well, let me rephrase this. One thing I dislike about the modern medical field is I feel like it's become really impersonal. And I admire the fact that you're actively working towards being more personal, like giving access to your patients so that they can reach out. For example, I severed the tendon in my big toe a year ago, so I had to go under surgery, and it was not fun, the recovery. I had a 4-month-old baby at the time, and
Oh.
it was just chaos. I was in a cast, couldn't walk. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But having the doctor, I had access to the doctor, and she was super helpful. Like, hey, can I do this? Is this safe? Is this not safe? Like, when do you think I'll be at? Like, just even simple questions. Like it kind of gave me a bit more of the timeline of okay, and then that what I could expect, what I shouldn't expect.
Right.
As opposed to kind of being left in the dark. I have a friend that's kind of doing totally something different, but they're frustrated with the medical industry because like they feel like they're just a run of the mill. It's like I don't even know if my doctor knows my name,
Right.
and so
Right.
I admire the fact that you guys. It seems like you are doing something actively different, where you're trying to give access to the patient and be a person.
Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, private practices are a dying, entity. A lot of private practices, even since I've been in Huntington, have been bought up by the bigger hospital systems, and you lose, not only the control, but also that human experience. It becomes, the doctors that I'm friendly with complain they feel like they're just a cog in the wheel, and the patients, they used to be able to call the office. Me as a patient, I used to call my doctor's office, and now you get sent to a call center, and I've been on hold for 45 minutes. And I'm in the field, and if I'm having difficulty getting access and navigating that, how is somebody supposed to do that with no experience and no knowledge about the way things are supposed to be? So I feel very strongly that this is the way to go, especially in my field, and I need to really hold on to this.
Would you say that there are any benefits to joining the large conglomerates?
Oh, sure. I mean, the HR, aspect of running a business is gone. That's then a department. You just show up and you take care of patients, right? Charting, things like that, but you're not responsible for making sure that the lights get paid and, things like that. Like you don't have to focus so much on marketing because the business will do that for you, right?
Oh, very interesting.
I have to look every month and see, okay, what have I spent on marketing? How has it come back? Has it come back at all? Is there an ROI? Is this just what I'm going to call branding to get my name out there? So there's a lot of things that I have to think about at the end of the day.
I've done a lot of branding.
Right? So, when you are employed, and when I was employed, I didn't really have to think about that.
So joining one of those, like if your practice joined one of those large conglomerates, you'd essentially be an employee of the conglomerate.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, there's pros and cons.
There's pros and cons.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's no different than owning any other business, like being
Right.
a construction worker and owning your business or being an employee in the construction business.
Exactly.
There's a lot of perks to being the employee, but then there's a lot of perks to being the business owner.
Yes. And one of the greatest things I think I've done just for myself is I've helped co-create this female networking group with a lot of other local business owners in Huntington.
Oh, cool.
And we meet monthly or every other month, and we sit and we talk about our experiences. And sometimes we'll say, hey, I've had to deal with XYZ. Have you been in that position before? How did you manage that? And that's huge.
Very similar to what we were talking about before we started filming, that being a business owner can be incredibly lonely because you're like, shoot, like
right.
95% of the population is an employee, so they don't understand the problems that a business owner has.
Right.
And, they'd like to think that they do because everybody could do the boss's job better, right?
Exactly. Until you're the boss and you realize, wow, that's a really tough job. That's a hat that you maybe didn't know you were able to do. Or,
absolutely. So how is that? Tell me about that the group that you have.
Oh, they're wonderful. It's such a strong, inspiring group of women who, some of them are in the beauty industry, many are not. And we all have shared experiences, both as women, as, a lot of us are moms. There's a shared experience there with,
Is that invitation only, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's kind of self-curated itself. We tried to do one representative per field. So we have a clothing designer, we have a realtor, we have, I'm the only cosmetic surgeon. We have wellness spa owners, lawyers. So it's, all walks of life.
That's great.
But there's a lot of overlap in the things that we deal with day to day and being business owners. So.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. So
Thank you.
First of all, thank you. And second of all, thank you to all the listeners and viewers. If you are a business owner or you think that you know a business owner that you think might be a great fit for this conversation like this, please reach out. And in the meantime, reach out to I'm sorry, your last name. And now we're 40 minutes in.
Vandegrift, I know, it's so
I'm
hard.
sorry. You know, I need a teleprompter next to me.
No worries.
Dr. Vandegrift. If you were interested in anything that Dr. Vandegrift has, I wanted. I obviously know it's Meredith, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I want to be more.
Yeah, no
professional,
worries.
you
Yeah,
know
of
what I'm
course.
saying?
No worries. I know. All good.
So definitely reach out, and we appreciate you for watching, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.